Good afternoon or good morning for those who are on a different time than I am. I'm super glad that you all could join. I think this is going to be a really great panel. When we were planning for this conference, we talked about the different topics that we want to cover. And yesterday we had a panel about career education. And another thing that we thought was really important was talking about the unique needs and the unique opportunities that middle school and high school students have to engage with STEM education. So we have a really wonderful panel lined up today. I don't want to take too much of their time because I know they have lots of amazing things to share. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Latoya, our facilitator for this panel, and then she will have everybody introduce themselves. So thanks for coming.
Thank you, Lauren. Welcome, everyone. We got audio. Everyone's all ready. Can I get a thumbs up from my speakers? Awesome. Thank you. Welcome to Sustaining STEM Sparks, Strategies to Foster Middle and High School Engagement and Out of School Time. This panel is designed, as Lauren said, to be a brief conversation and really a jump start for you in your personal spaces to talk about middle and high school out of school time programs and how they're a unique place where youth can come in that fifth going into sixth grade, really that middle school age, and come with their own opportunities and unique challenges, and to discuss through conversation what some of the individuals that have been in these spaces for a bit of time can offer us. Our panelists will share their experiences and advice for how to best engage students as what in their out of school time programs as it relates to STEM programming. I'll start with, my name is Latoya Mosley, and I am currently at the Hilltop YMCA in Columbus, Ohio on the west side. I've worked in youth development for about 15 years, specifically about 12 in the middle school and high school space exclusively. And I am excited to be here as your facilitator and host. First, I will send it off to Danella Hicks.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes. All right, my name is Danella Hicks. I am the founder and executive director of All That Teens Hopeful About Tomorrow. We're on the east side of Columbus, and we serve students who are ages 13 to 19. So we just entered the middle school realm. We had to get approval from Ohio Department of Education. I have been in this space now for about 25 years. I've worked with teens, and so that's my niche. So I would say I'm particularly proud of the fact that teens actually come out to our program on a regular basis voluntarily. Okay.
Thank you. Next, we have Drew Glassford.
Thank you, Latoya. Good morning, everyone. I'm Drew Glassford. I'm the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Dundee Township. We're in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. We're actually changing our name in a couple months to the Boys and Girls Club of the Northwest Suburbs. We serve 8 different communities, 16 program sites, after school and in summer camp programs. And I've been in this space, in youth development space, for about 15 years. I have been in the role as CEO here for 5 years. We've about quadrupled our size in those 5 years, and I think I'm most proud of, similar to Danella, that our kids come, and our kids come back, and our kids are engaged, and the feedback from the community about them has really been extraordinary and rewarding for us to see, particularly what we've been through in the last 4 or 5 years. So look forward to sharing more about that with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Kwame.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kwame Jemfe. I work for a nonprofit named Civic Nebraska. I am the school community coordinator at Northeast High School. I run the Community Learning Centers, which is the after-school programming. We focus on filling the needs of a diverse student group. I have had my current role for about 6 months. Previously, I was the student advocate in equity, inclusion, and diversity facilitator. I've worked with LPS since 2008. Civic Nebraska takes pride in providing students with the tools to help build a robust democracy by elevating student voice. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Remington.
Hello, everyone. I'm Remington Price. I am the Center Director at the Gary Comer Youth Center. We are on the southeast side of Chicago in the greater Grand Crossing neighborhood. I've been working with the organization for nearly 7 years, and we are a out-of-school time provider, a youth center, serving young people aged 11 to 24 now, because we've started doing some workforce development and career pathways work as well. And we offer programming in sports and leadership, media and technology, academic success programming, including 2 TRIO programs, culinary arts, urban agriculture, including a 2-acre urban farm, visual culture and performing arts, as well as restorative justice and mentoring programs.
So as you can see, folks, we have a wealth and wide range of knowledge, experience, and geography here to kind of lead this conversation. So I'm going to jump right into it if everyone's ready. First question we're going to explore is, what unique challenges and opportunities do you have working with this age group, the middle and high school youth? And we'll just stop right there and first start off round robin, giving us 2 major challenges that you have working with this age group. And I'm going to go back to Danella.
Okay, I would say 2 challenges. First of all, our students are afraid of science, math. We serve students who attend schools that are struggling. And so when we target those students who don't want to stay off their phones. They have behavioral challenges. We have to transport them to get to our site. So I would say those are our top 3 challenges. Did I say 3 or was it 4? That's what I've got so far.
Thank you, Danella. Drew.
You're welcome.
Top 2 challenges.
Yeah, definitely echo everything Danella said for sure. For us, kids don't want to go to school after school, right? Like they don't want to be in school. So anything that looks like school to them, we always say our kids vote with their feet, right? So it's high school, the group that we're really targeting, teens, middle school, high school, they vote with their feet because they don't have to be there. And so I always share with my staff, we have to balance the potato chips with the broccoli, right? Like the vegetable, what do they want versus what do they need? And how do we present that in a really compelling way that's meaningful to them? So, that aspect of it, making it compelling. Secondly, getting parental engagement and support, that's really key. And educating the parents in the value of our program, because we are about life and workforce readiness. That's really our goal. And we have, great opportunities. It's getting the kids prepared and aware of them and excited about, wanting to participate in the workforce after high school. And so getting parents to understand that value proposition and what we add as an out-of-school time partner, and then helping us with it. We're getting better at it, but it's a challenge to really get them, because let me just share, 96% of our kids are Title I, and 92% are minority, mostly Hispanic. So their families are mostly recent immigrants. So they don't, their trust and their lack of understanding of after-school programs and the value add that we provide is an education and trust building process for that. So those are the top 2 for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Kwame.
So from a logistical standpoint, we have 2 areas of concern. Our number 1 area is feeding our kids nutrition. Northeast High School is on the peripheries of what's called a food desert, meaning that there are no grocery stores within walking distance for many of our students. We are also about 70% free or reduced lunch. So it is always a challenge to make sure that our kiddos are getting food. We do feed them through after school program, but for these growing kids, that's never enough.
Never enough.
We're always trying to add to that value. The second piece for us would be transportation. Logistically, we are located very close to 2 business districts. So our students don't have access to the public transportation like we would really like. We don't bus our kids to our schools. So many of our students are dependent upon the city buses or family rides, which means they're dropping off several people before our kiddos get to school. We have a high absentee rate for first period. So then that's primarily because of, for example, we have students that live on the other side of 84th Street, so about 90th Street, but they can't get to a bus. The closest bus they have is probably about 20 blocks away from their homes. So
Wow.
they have to walk to the bus stop and then wait for a bus, which only comes one day an hour or one time an hour to take them to school. So that's a challenge. And then obviously when you add winter weather, that creates an even bigger challenge. So those are the two main things. Once we get them in the building, a lot of our kids our after school program is in our library. So we have a captive audience once we get them there.
Thank you. And Remington.
Sure. I would say our two largest challenges to sort of echo what the other panelists have been saying is definitely transportation. Gary Comer Youth Center is at an intersection that is quite busy, 2 major bus lines. But on top of that transportation being a challenge, public safety makes transportation a challenge. Our families do not want to put their 11-year-old on the bus at 7, 8 o'clock at night when programming is over. They don't want their young person walking down the street on a major street. Twice just this year, we've had major car accidents right in front of our building. One of those car accidents ended up in the building. A car physically drove into our building off the major street. Nobody was hurt and everything was fine. But that is a huge concern for us, is that public safety piece. And then second of all, I would say for high schoolers in particular, young people in Chicago expect to be paid to show up for your program. So we have to find funding to provide stipends to our young people, because otherwise they'll go get a part-time job. And we all know that that's just cheap labor for, large companies. They're not going to get the same thing out of that after-school job as they're going to get being in your program. So we got to find the funding to be able to pay our kids to show up.
Thank you. And one side commentary for myself. If I could have had my fingers up, these would be the 5 things that it seems pretty universal. I was counting on my finger, like we have that here in Central Ohio as well. So this conversation is very timely. And with that, we don't just want to talk about the challenges, because with challenges, they become unique opportunities. And so how do you use these unique opportunities to engage the middle and high school youth in STEM differently than you might, or you would if you have both in your program, elementary youth? So
okay.
let's actually go backward and start with Remington, because you just spoke.
Sure. So I think 2 unique opportunities that we have here at GCYC. One is we have very strong ties to 2 schools in our immediate area. We have really, really great school partnerships. So young people get walked over after school from these 2 schools to our building. It's a warm handoff from school staff to our staff. So that is a huge opportunity for us. We have to a certain degree, like some guaranteed numbers of young people that will be in the building with us after school. It also allows us to build better relationships with the school staff, so we know what's going on during the school day, if young people need additional social emotional support, what young people are thriving in STEM related subjects, what young people are struggling in STEM related subjects, and so on. And then I think another strength and opportunity for us is that we do as much as we can to let the young people run the show. So we're basically coaching the young people in our programs to take our jobs. And we actually have a ton of alumni that come back and want to work and instruct and be part of the program afterwards. So they're running their daily SEL check-ins. They're coming up with their own projects. They're figuring out, what careers this is tied to, and it's very, very youth-led for our program.
Thank you. And just so that we touch on that elementary comparison, what's one thing that you would change or that would be different for these elementary youth?
Yes. So I think that something being youth-led for An elementary group is very different than how much you can allow like a group of high schoolers to really sort of take over their program and take ownership of that. Um, One of the first after school programs that I taught back in the day was third, fourth, and fifth graders. And I remember this so vividly. I tried to give them a bit more voice and choice in a day, and it went all the way left. I was a culinary instructor at the time. There's flour everywhere, young people running around. It was a disaster. They need the illusion of choice to get that same buy-in and that same sort of feeling of independence. Whereas with our middle schoolers and our high schoolers, we can really put them in charge.
Thank you for that, Kwame. Same question.
So one of the first things I decided, well, when I got into the role, I inherited some things from the previous person. So I had to figure out how to incorporate some of these different pieces into something a little more holistic. I wanted to have control over something a little more detailed. So we started a program called Future Harvest. So Future Harvest has three components. It has a community garden, it has what we call grow towers, and it has a farm bot. And these three components, students are responsible for. When we talk about the community garden, they're responsible for obviously the planting of the garden. They figure out what they want to grow and the design of the garden and making it publicly accessible. And then we put plenty of signage in the garden so that the general public understands what we're growing, and it shows them how they can grow it on their own. With our grow towers, we are growing some pieces of an end product. So we're doing basil and cilantro and things of that nature in our grow towers. And our farm bot is a fully self-sufficient farming system. It will plant, it will water, it will weed, and it will harvest the produce. We take all of these pieces together and we make garden salsa and pesto. The students, we have what's called an eco hub. It is a trailer that's been modified that the students we take this trailer out to our farmer market, Husker game days, to any student-led activities, and they pretty much talk about what they've grown. They explain to people how they can grow it themselves so they can have some sustainability, self-sufficiency. And then, I mean, we give away what we make. So we'll give away 2-ounce samples of salsa, and we have a cooperative agreement with NASA. So we're doing their Grow the Moon project, and we're growing some things in moon soil, and we're advertising our salsa as rocket salsa because it's grown in the moon soil. And we are the Rockets. That's our mascot, is the Rockets. So that is one project that is a fairly new one, but it's a holistic approach to STEM, and it also teaches kids how to be self-sufficient. And it also involves our community engagement. The other project that we have is we give out mini grants to help students start their own businesses. So we really promote entrepreneurship. So students can receive up to $500 to start their own business. We actually help them step by step to do that. And then by the time they graduate, everything that they do, they get to keep. It's all theirs. So they have them a little side hustle per se, while they're pursuing whatever else that they want to do in life. One last thing is, state of Nebraska is one of 20 states that you do not have to have a license to braid hair. So we've started a hair braiding club, which allows our students the opportunity to make income braiding hair, to supplement whatever they need in school.
And so how is your unique way of addressing your challenges different? How is that approach different than how you would for the elementary school students?
So we are starting to implement some of this program, the Future Harvest program, in our elementary sites. And that is we're using the grow towers to do that. The grow towers can produce food at a much faster rate than what a garden can. So we're able to supplement some of what students are eating in the salad bar. So on an elementary level, that's what it would be. It would just be basically us providing them additional nutrients through the grow tower and talking to them about the whole process, the basic hydroponic process and how it works.
Thank you. Drew, same question. Let me know if you need me to reiterate it.
Yeah, no, I've got it. I'm going to share my screen here too, because it gives a little bit of insight into what we're doing. Let me get back to this one. Okay. First of all, what a great group. Love so inspirational, the work that you're doing. This is our space. It's called our Impact Center. So one of the clear differentiators for us is, and we run a career pathway program, life and workforce readiness program. We have summer jobs partners. We do some entrepreneurship opportunities, but it's really about engaging our local, we're in the suburbs, so we have a lot more access to local, close proximity local employers, community colleges and partners. We don't have the transportation barriers that a lot of the urban clubs have. So we're able to access a lot more community resources and bring them in, but we really wanted to create a differentiated space and a differentiated name. So you'll see there's no Boys and Girls Club on our center. It's Impact Center, because we knew high school kids, they do not want to go anything that says boys and girls, right? So we named it Impact Center intentionally because we know in our mission, we want to impact our kids' lives. Successful launch, Kwame. That's why I love the Rockets name. It's so good. We're all committed to that, right? Successful launch. So impact is about them, but it's also about their role in the community and their role in the world. So we're very much about empowerment, that this is an empowerment space, that this is about their making an impact in their future, impact currently through volunteerism and work programs that we have. We run a summer lawn care program where we get names of residents who have been cited by the city and villages for, they're elderly or disabled, so they can't care for their lawn. So our kids go out and do it for them. And it's really great because we've got these senior citizens saying, I used to be scared of these kids, and now they're bringing them lemonade and cookies and ice cream. And it's just been this great, way to connect the community and show how great our kids are and the good that they are going to do. So intentionality on the name, that it creates an empowerment to them. I'll echo about the compensation. We have to pay a stipend as well. We certainly don't do that at the elementary level and middle school level, but at the high school level, our kids need the money. And a lot of times that money is going to support the family. So we provide a stipend. We're fortunate that we have donors that have stepped up. But as Lauren shared, we have that same challenge of keeping that funding going, but we do it. The last thing I'll speak to, though, is the space, because what we found is with high school kids, this is actually in a school building. We were given a wing of a school building right next to the high school. It's an elementary school right next to Dundee Crown High School, where there's 2,500 of our kids go. So we were given this wing to remodel, and we made it very intentionally their space, positive messaging, compelling to them, so that it gave them a strong sense of belonging, and it gave them a unique environment that didn't look like school, and to me spoke to their greatness of who they are and what they can become. That's differentiating from the institution of the school. Because that's the other piece, I guess the last thing I'll add regarding supports, and Remington shared this about SEL supports, that their belief gap, they especially with the pandemic, their barriers, their challenges, their emotional stress, their challenges with schoolwork is really, really been high. So we have life coaches, an SEL team. We really focus hard on looking at their barriers and helping support them through it.
Thank you. I don't know if anyone else is noticing, but there's also a theme with how we're turning these challenges into unique opportunities as well. Let's go to Danella. Would you like me to restate the question?
Well, I have it written down here.
Okay.
So we have never served elementary school kids, so I'll have to just take a gander. But what I see is that elementary school kids would typically stay after school and their parents have to pick them up. So for our students, we know that if they don't want to go to school during the day, so to ask them to come to our community center after school, they would get distracted, or they would not make it to us after school. So we provide busing. We have lots of partnerships. Ohio State is here in the Columbus area. And so we have lots of field trips to Ohio State so that our kids can see themselves on a college campus. They can participate in unusual activities. We partner with the OSU School of Anatomy so that our kids had an opportunity to hold a cadaver or to see a cadaver. And so for high school kids, that was, for those who did not want to go into the medical field, they still had a conversation that they could discuss with their families. We have the projects that we do. In many cases, they've seen them on TikTok. So the Diet Coke and the Mentos, project, our kids got a chance to do it, and so it wasn't just something that other people did. They can now say, yeah, I know. And, so it increased their confidence. We too have a lawn care program where we cut the grasses of our disabled and senior citizens. We try to have that relationship with businesses as well. When we do mock interviews, we want our businesses to come in and see our high school kids, polished up so they can relate to them and not just see them as, disrespectful or unemployable. So I love the space, Drew. Thank you for showing that. We are in an older church, and so we spend a lot of time just trying to do a lot of the cosmetic things to make it so it's not a church, because our students don't want to go to church. But we make it so it's inviting. We'll do simple things such as making popcorn, having hot dog days, and just to get them in the door, form relationships with them, so then we can impart the skills that they need to be successful.
Thank you. That is actually a perfect segue to the next question, which is, what are some ways that you are finding that engages this particular age group in STEM specifically, and how do you provide that to them? I feel like we've touched on it a little bit, but let's talk about some of those partnerships and what resources other individuals could benefit from. Where specifically are you doing the work? I know some of you have talked a little bit about situationally where your program is located, but just kind of paint a picture for us. Who are some partnerships that you have, and how do you really draw them into the STEM aspect of your program? And I'm actually going to loop back around and have Danella talk.
Okay. So we partner with Girl Scouts. Girl Scouts has a robust program with robotics. And so they were able to come in and introduce robotics to our students. I mentioned Ohio State earlier with their School of Anatomy, their School of Nursing. We're starting to look at 4-H to get our kids involved in that as well. But in many cases, our kids are intimidated by that. So we start off with simple things. Our kids built volcanoes last year. They painted them. And so it was a process. They had that hands-on experience. So we're always looking for partners. But that has been, I guess, the Girl Scouts, the OSU, that's been very impactful for us.
Thank you. Drew.
Thank you, Latoya. We're really big on local partners and regional partners. When we built the center, we got capital investments as well as operational investments from several local advanced manufacturing companies, supply chain distribution, construction management companies, and we engage actively with them in providing activities that relate to what they do. So we have hands-on activities, and we call them sprints. We call all of our, we don't want to call it classes or sessions or even credentials. We just call them experiences. And the kids come in, they sign up. We have 3 one-hour experiences a day after school. They come in and they sign up for them. They're typically short-term, 2 or 3 sessions for each of them. And so an example is we have auto engineering, which is they do a lot of work for aerospace. They have 400 employees. They're right in town in Carpentersville where we are. And so they do a lot of electronics assembly. And so we have our kids build small electronics projects with soldering and, LEDs, fun things, the Vibrabugs, everything from there up to, we do coding and, and small robotics, but it's all on it's in a very soft, shorter level where we're not about competency and skills. We're just about belief and awareness, that mindset for them, so they can see themselves in those jobs. So we have them do those small projects and we take them on a tour. We show them what they do. We have speakers come in that came from where our kids came from. So typically, they started at a base level at a lot of these organizations, and then they work their way up. Some of them use it as a stepping stone, going to community college, and they go on to a 4-year degree. Others get upskilled within the facilities, and then they end up getting really high-paying jobs and highly skilled jobs in either engineering or assembly or something like that. We also have Comcast as a strong partner, so we've done app design challenges with them that are very entrepreneurial. We actually use space as the guide. Like, you're going to be exploring Mars. How do you design an app to get to, what are you going to need when you go to Mars? My favorite one that won was an alien dating app that this group of girls created. It was amazing, right? But, they're being creative, and fun, but it also gives them, awareness and exposure that, I could code and I could create a wireframe and I could do design thinking required for an app. So we've been really successful at engaging local partners. The best success story we have around that, and I'm gonna, oops, sorry, I goofed that up. Let me just share the screen because we all love to hear about the success of our kids. This is Michael Haro. So we have Zurich Insurance located in Schaumburg. Their headquarters is there. We have a board member from Zurich Insurance, and they did a mentoring program, actually a virtual mentoring program, where they had professionals from across the country come in and Zoom with our kids around opportunities. And Michael is an example of someone where when they talked to him about, what do you want to do when you graduate in 2 years? He said, I know there's a McDonald's in town, but I really want to look into Walmart. I think there's opportunities there because I know I can get benefits in advance. So Michael's world was Carpentersville. Michael's world was where he and his friends hung out at McDonald's and Walmart, right? Well, they found out that Michael was really good at math. And so our team, our career pathway director and our SEL team worked with him and found out he was great at math. And over the course of 2 years, uncovered opportunity for him in our career pathway program. He won our Youth of the Year. And last fall, he enrolled at Butler University in their aerospace engineering program. Super proud to say that, right? But here's somebody who his entire world, right? We love this, right? This is the magic of our work. Here's somebody who his entire world was Carpentersville, McDonald's, Walmart, and he just had no idea of what else was possible and no one to help guide him on that path. So last thing I'll say that's really important is we know in our public schools, the ratio of guidance counselors to students is 1 to 400. There's no way they can spend the time with our kids. There's no way they can build those relationships. There's no way they can build self-confidence and overcome that belief gap. So that's a big piece of it for us is how do we engage people who look like our kids, came from where they came from, and it's very frequently not a straight path, but inspire them to pursue it and be successful.
Thank you. And I do want to acknowledge the hands in the comments. We will leave some time at the end to kind of circle back and touch on those. Can I swing over to Kwame?
So one of the things we try to do, earlier someone said about kind of leading kids, you don't want to give them all the voice. And this was referred to, I believe it was elementary, middle school. And I believe that there's something to that in the high school level as well. But the main thing for us is our first big piece is we have esports. So esports, on the surface, it looks like they're playing video games and, just mashing buttons. But in actuality, there's a large cognitive thinking component involved with the specific games that they're playing. So we have a partnership with UNL, the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. They have an esports program at UNL. So we've already reached out with them. We've toured their facilities and we've connected with them. So now UNL will have their students come to Northeast and put on a esports tournament with our students. So now we're engaging them in STEM, plus we're doing some community connections there. So I like to say that almost every club that you have in a CLC, other than sports, and even maybe you can find it there, but there's STEM found in everything. Our kids use their cell phones every day, and that's technology. So just for us to kind of stay in their lane and what they use on a regular basis and give them opportunities to exercise those muscles. Now, one more thing with esports is all the tournaments that they do, they're team related tournaments, meaning that they have to work with someone else in order to win. When we first started our esports program, we were getting our butts kicked because the other schools understood that. They understood how to work together. Our kids were still learning how to do that. Well, recently we've started winning games, and so in my mind, through STEM, we've taught them so much more than just about science and the technology pieces itself. One more thing I'm going to talk about, and this one is an interesting one. There's several clubs that we have that I could find STEM. We have Dungeons and Dragons, and I feel like what is required to organize. We have dungeon masters. They have to go to a summer camp. There's all kind of organization that they have to do, and so there's some STEM involved with that. But there is one club. It's called Civically Creative Crafting, and what it is they crochet. So they don't just they will do simple crochets, but some of the kids take on more advanced crochet projects. And as you know, there is math required for some of the advanced crochet projects. So we're finding things that they like to do and just making sure that we challenge them within their realms. You know what I mean? To understand what it is that they're doing, and to try to push themselves in those realms. So those are a couple of things that we do. I didn't know on this question, were we supposed to talk about our demographics?
We were, but I was going to circle back. No worries. I did want to get to Remington first, and then we'll do a round robin just to talk a little bit about where we are.
All right, so I'm done then.
Thank you, Remington.
Yes. Yeah. So like I said, at the top of the panel, we have the broad sort of swath of programming, and STEM really finds its way into everything. So last year we had a partnership with the local glass blowing studio as part of one of our art projects, and they were doing mosaics. And they actually went down to the studio and got to blow glass, which was really incredible and just kind of blew everybody's mind. But even just the process of them, putting down the mosaic tiles, and then they created, tiles. They were gluing different things together, and then they blew it, and they created a singular tile, which, that's science. A lot of times, we think about like engineering and science. And so we have our robotics program, which is very popular. We're building engineering into that more. We have a lot of young people who are very interested in architecture. Being in Chicago, that kind of goes part and parcel. And then what I'll talk a little bit more deeply about is our urban agriculture program, which is a ton of science, a ton of horticulture. And we have a really, really amazing team that really lets the young people experiment more than, the folks that want our farm to make money, more than they would like us to do, but they really let the young people just kind of go wild and experiment. We're very lucky to have a hydroponics lab. We've got a whole section that is just, the same plant that has been cloned growing in 6 to 10 different types of soil just to see what's going to happen. They test different lights. We've got a whole row in our locker room is closed off right now for all of our seedlings. We have a beautiful 6,000 square foot rooftop garden where the young people are saving seeds year over year. So now the seasonal flowers that we have growing on our rooftop are actually a special project that was started 5 years ago by a different group of green teams that are now being tended by this year's green teams, will be tended by next year's green teams. Our farm has a number of really wonderful partnerships, both in the city, outside of the city, and right here in our community. We donate close to half of what we grow to local food pantries. And the young people who are working the farm and growing that produce take the boxes, walk it down to the food pantries, and then they volunteer their day there. So they help them unpack it. They help them unpack the food coming from the food depository that is supplemental. They wash it, they prepare it, they serve it to the folks, and they prepare those bags and those groceries to go home with their community members. And then they're also having those conversations with them about what food they want so that they can incorporate that into next year's crop.
And so with that, kind of going backwards, I know we said like where we're located in the state. Just for context, can you, in like a round robin, indicate if it's urban, rural, suburban, and about how many youth you serve in your program, let's say on a weekly basis, starting back with Remington?
So we are urban. We're on the southeast side of Chicago in the greater Grand Crossing neighborhood. We see about 800 young people a week, like individuals. We have an average daily attendance of around 200, and we serve folks Monday through Saturday.
Kwame.
Lincoln, Nebraska has got a population of about 290,000. Northeast High School has a student population of about 1,700. We serve around 80 students per day on average. So that, do the math, there's about 400 kiddos a week. And we are open when school gets out until 6 p.m. and then 5:30 on Fridays.
Thank you. Drew?
Thank you. So we're in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. We have 11 elementary school sites, 4 middle school, and 1 high school. We're developing our high school site currently is 10,000 square feet in a shared space. We're developing a 45,000 square foot shared middle school, high school program space that's going to open next summer. We serve about 2,000 kids a year in all of our programs. And at the high school level, we have an ADA of about 65 and about 100 different kids each week, 100 total each week. So, we know our kids aren't coming 5 times a week, right? We get in 2 or 3 days usually. Yeah.
And Danella.
Okay, we are on the east side of Columbus, Ohio. We serve about 100, maybe 100 students a week. Our average attendance is about 50 students a day. In order to receive a stipend, they need to attend at least 3 days a week. So that kind of keeps our numbers pretty high. The majority of our students are African American, economically disadvantaged, and they are low performers. So many of our students they struggle with school in general. And so just having a safe place after school is huge for our kids.
Thank you. And I wanted to pause there for a second because to contextualize that, as you can see throughout all of these cities, various numbers of individuals really just doing that work. And it doesn't stop even if there are adult supporters in the mix. Sometimes the numbers keep growing, but the workforce of the adult advocates grows smaller. So because I know that this is something that's huge in this field, I did want to circle back for maybe a few moments because we're hitting that 15-minute mark to just talk a little bit about what you do for not just staff development, but recruitment and retention. So I'm actually going to go, let's start with Remington.
Sure. So we are a small but mighty team. I've got 28 full-time staff, and that includes like our admins, back of house, senior leadership. And then we've got probably an additional 20 part-time staff. Some of those folks are instructors, and some of those folks are administrative support, front desk membership, those sorts of things. To retain staff, we put a really big emphasis on culture. All of us are here for the young people. At the end of the day, we're here for our community. We're here for our youth. We want to make sure that we're doing right by them, which means we're doing right by each other. We all know that the work is taxing, so we do our best to provide that social emotional support for us as a team, as adults, so that we are not trying to pour from an empty cup into our young people. With that, the young people are a part of our hiring process. So if the young people don't give you the A-OK, you are not going to work at the Gary Comer Youth Center. For pretty much every position, the final step of the hiring process is a youth panel where we bring young people in from different program areas, some of them middle schoolers, some of them high schoolers, and we let them ask you what they want to ask you to see if you are here for the right reasons. Young people get a better sense of things than adults do a lot of the time, and they've steered us in the right direction more than once.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and go to Kwame.
So, first of all, full disclosure, Remington, I stole your idea and we started implementing that at our school. So we have a student panel that actually hired our last program staffer, and they are going to next week interview for our hair braiding club, our new hair braiding teacher. So we operate with a budget of about 200,000. So we don't have a ton of money for staff. We have it's me. I have a program specialist, and then at one point we did have 4 program staffers. Now we're down to 1 program staffer. We rely heavily on community partnerships. So one aspect is the volunteers hours that we get from UNL students in their respective fields. In order for them to graduate, they have to have so many volunteer hours. So we have tapped into that through UNL. Also our local partners. Well, to be clear, the teachers in our building have done a really good job. We have what's called a Rocket House, which is a tutoring deal at the school. After school, we pay teachers to come in and tutor students. So teachers are involved in the building. And then we have a couple of nonprofits that come in, volunteer their time to work with kids. Cedars Group Home plus Kaleidoscope. These are different Trio, which is another organization through UNL that comes in and works with kids and, just gives us that extra support.
Thank you. Drew?
So first of all, I got to say, people ask me like, how have you been successful in your work? I always say I use the CASE method, which is copy and steal everything. So Kwame and Remington, I love that idea. I am totally going to use the CASE method on that one of the youth panel. That is extraordinary. Thank you for sharing that. Because that's another point of youth voice, right? It's like a double empowerment. You make sure you get the right people, and then you also empower them and let them be empowered, which is phenomenal. So thanks for sharing that. One of the challenges I found, so we have over 100 employees, about 40 full-time, 60 part-time, and that's across all of our programs. One of the biggest challenges that I find at the high school level is, there are folks that get into youth development work as youth development professionals because they have a safe haven mindset, which is really needed and really warranted, which is let's just give the kids a safe place to be and provide a caring, loving environment, which I really, very valuable, right? But when you think about what we call change agent mindset, which is, okay, you've established that level of safe support and relationship, but how do you affect change for them? How do you become a force in their life and become a change agent for them? And that's a really different mindset. And we've found that we've had to really be tactical and differentiate. And what we do is we blend our staff. We have staff that are caring and provide that safe haven, but the folks that are the change agents, have basically they're more career development oriented because it is a whole different approach to it. So where we've had challenges with staff is trying to shift one into that, and trying to set expectations. But I think understanding the differentiation between that is really, really important. I'll double down on what Remington said too about culture. Hugely important for us. Most of our staff are Hispanic because that's our community. And cultural relevance is something I've learned to pay a lot of attention to when it comes to, really providing a valuable and rich experience for them that keeps them involved and keeps them empowered and keeps them engaged.
Thank you. And Danella?
So we serve students that are pretty tough. And so our staff are our turnover is pretty high because I think we have people who they want to come and they want to work with high school students, but they don't understand that our kids are, in many cases, they'll go toe to toe with you. So you've got to be gentle and you still need to be a change agent. So just that, we want to deliver our services with excellence. So it's a challenge for us. We do a lot of professional development because what we found is if we hire from outside of our neighborhood, those employees don't usually last. But if we hire from within our neighborhood, we get what our neighborhood has produced. And so we have to stay a couple steps ahead of our kids. We've had to increase the rates that we pay. I think COVID did a number on us where, White Castle started paying $15 an hour. And it's like, come on now, I've got to get, far enough ahead of that in order to recruit qualified staff. So staffing has been a challenge. I think we're in a good stride right now where our kids relate well to our staff. Our staff feel empowered and they are also being productive. We've got about 20 of us here.
Thank you. And if you're keeping up, the reason why I asked that is because, as you saw from all of those answers, it brings us to how to incorporate meaningful youth voice. We talked about in our prep meeting about that youth council, that youth interview. And that's one way to, out the door, get that youth voice involved very early on in who is going to be facilitating the activities, gleaning their information that they're going to be funneling to the youth. So how specifically outside of that youth council does your program incorporate youth voice? Being mindful that we are 7 minutes down. Let's go back and hit Danella.
Okay, so we do quite a few surveys for our students so that so they can let us know what they like. When we allow them to, we allow them to participate, but not necessarily lead the tracks, because I think someone said earlier to go left really quickly. But we definitely, we want them to be involved, and the more they come out, the more they are able to be leaders in our program.
Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, we're really fortunate in that we got a grant from the National Boys and Girls Club it's called TLC, Think, Learn, and Create, which is it's a structured program around youth voice where our kids actually got to go to Washington, D.C. So we picked 4 of our kids. They do a National Day of Advocacy on Capitol Hill in July, and 4 of our kids got to go to it. And it was about empowering them to pick an issue that was important to them. And interestingly, but not surprisingly, they picked mental health. And then they dialed in on the environment as being like their biggest threat to them, is like what's happening with the environment. So they were really passionate about that, and they were really well prepared and empowered. And so that helped us create a framework to have and develop their voice outside of the organization. And then so now we're engaging them this year with our school boards, with our community council meetings. We're giving them opportunities to go out and share who they are and what they are. And to Danella's point, we do a lot of surveying as well on program efficacy and what they want to see. Last thing is we use a CASEL framework for our SEL program. The CASEL framework has really good assessment tools on behavior and emotional well-being that we pay a lot of attention to, and our SEL team engages in.
Thank you. Kwame?
So our student voice, Civic Nebraska is part of our mission statement to form a robust democracy. So almost everything we do for our students includes that student voice, from them voting on what they want to do to them feeling safe enough to say what they want to say, speak their mind in that space. I don't really edit their language per se. I will ask them to respect the space in others, but I do understand that one of the things I learned a few years ago is that the 3 hours that I have those students in an after school space may be the only 3 hours they get to be kids in a day, meaning they go from school to a household in which they have other responsibilities that are adult responsibilities, if I'm being honest. So I always want to make sure that in that space, kiddos feel as if they're welcome. From the moment they walk in, they're all recognized. I say what's up to everybody that I see that comes in that space. And as much as it hurts, sometimes I stand and listen to conversations that I don't necessarily want to hear from kiddos, because I know that I'm a stable person in their life. They're freak out if they don't see me in that space. So I do my best to try to give them what they need. Because that's, to me, part of what student voice is. It's not always about them voting on things. Part of it is them feeling like they got a spot where they can be them. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Remington. And with this response, we're at 4 minutes, and I did want to give at least a couple of minutes to acknowledge the questions. And so Remington, we're just going to have your answer and then cycle back with any last pieces of advice before we address any questions.
Okay. Yeah, so I think, we do a bit of what everyone has shared, and I'll offer that this year we took our regular programming, which is typically 60 minutes, and we made it, every program is now at a minimum 90 minutes. And that's because every single program, every single day has 15 minutes on the front end for some sort of social emotional check-in, and 15 minutes on the back end for structured and required reflection on what you've done for the day. So we had a training before at the top of the program year where we went over different kinds of icebreakers, what SEL means. We also utilize the CASEL framework, and now that's baked into every single day, every single program.
All right, next, going backwards, Kwame.
Okay, as far as advice, is that what you want me to say, basically?
Yes.
Okay, so there's two things I want to say. Moving forward, we have to change our mindset. Education was structured around a making manufacturing workers mindset. We have to move it forward. So the two things I would say is we have to learn how to create problem solvers. Someone mentioned coding earlier. We've already looked past coding because AI is going to do all the coding for you. We're looking at how to teach the kids how to edit the AI that does the coding. So that is one thing. And the second thing I would say is we have to produce storytellers, because in the end, all of the to-do stuff we do, the typing and all that, is going to get handled by our computers. We still need people to make connections with other people. That's all I got.
Thank you, Drew.
Yeah, my advice is, find the gap. As an out-of-school time program, we're all about filling gaps that aren't filled, right? And so and it's different, or urban, rural, suburban. So to us, we dialed in on mindset, because we think about recently immigrated families and their awareness and confidence as a parent. When you think about when you raise children, what do you do successfully in that out of school time, if you're available for it? And when you're available for it, to me, it's really about belief, overcoming that belief gap. That's a big one. And working on mindset, on confidence, determination, self-reliance, all those transferable soft skills, which are now becoming employability skills, to Kwame's point, problem solving, all of that. So to me, find that gap, and I really believe for most of our kids, it's mindset and resilience, and not yet, but we'll get there.
Thank you, Danella, and then Remington, you will be able to have your last piece as well.
Okay, well, I'll keep mine short and say we need to continue building relationships. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That wasn't for me, but it still stands. That's all I got.
Thank you, Remington.
I think for me, there was a, so this is probably going to be a little bit of a segue as well, but there was a comment in the chat about how do you support part-time staff? Because they're the ones that
I was getting there. Thank you.
They're the ones that are doing the work, and they're the ones that are propping the whole thing up, right? And so I think sometimes the folks that are doing the work and are in the grind and are doing the instruction get a little lost in the sauce in some of these higher level conversations. And so I think that my advice to anyone with anything, STEM or not, doing this work is to stay as connected to those folks as you possibly can, and to make sure that like that connection to them and that open line of communication is always open and always healthy, because that's how you're going to make the best decisions and that's how you're going to make the most impact.
Thank you so much. We have done an amazing job with just answering the questions fully. That was one of the questions that I wanted to revisit. Is there anyone who wants to briefly unmute themselves? I see Lauren has her hand up, just for a quick second as we are getting to about 1 minute.
Sorry, that was my clap for you.
Yes, is there anyone? We're about 1 minute left of any questions. This was such a robust conversation. I don't want it to end. It has been recorded, so I'm sure the team will make sure that it's available, and our information will be connected to the oh, I'm sorry. Sheila.
No, and I was just going to say, if our panelists did not see, it has been asked if you all don't mind sharing your emails. I don't know if you all were monitoring the chat, but the chat box was on fire over here while you all were talking. So this has been like amazing.
A breath of fresh air.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Sheila. Yes, I was going to say, with the send out, the contacts will be available for you to reach out with more questions. We have phenomenal folks here doing great work. Any other questions that I missed outside of the contact information for the panelists? Thank you all so much. This has been amazing. Thank you, Danella, Remington, Drew, Kwame, Lauren, everyone. And I'm LaToya. Thank you all and have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And everybody stick around for our closing session. We've got another NASA speaker. Yay.